Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Now today we have another really nice topic. We're going to be talking about this idea of learning two or perhaps more languages at the same time. Is it a bad idea? Is it a good idea? And if so, how to do that, right? So I'm going to be focusing on a specific principle that I think is really important if you're going to be learning more than one language at the same time. So without further ado, let's jump in, but can't do that before we have our sip of Wednesday morning coffee. Now, the reason why I thought about talking about this today is that I've been getting lots and lots of comments asking for my opinions on, is it a good idea to learn two languages at the same time? But of course, as many of you will know, I am in fact learning Mandarin Chinese and German right now at the same time. So my basic answer to the question is that I think it's a perfectly fine thing to do. I think that's a great idea depending on your goals, your schedule, your timeline, right? But I think this is a great opportunity to discuss an important principle that I think I have sort of implicitly followed for many years now, which is that as I look back and I think about all the times I've successfully learned several languages concurrently, I only ever have one beginner language at the same time. So in the case of Mandarin Chinese and German, I've been documenting my whole journey learning Mandarin for quite a while now. And you'll notice that I really focused on Mandarin Chinese pretty much exclusively for quite some time. Now, part of this is because, the whole point of that Chinese series I'm doing is that my schedule is absolutely insane right now, right? And so I don't have 3, 4, 5, 6 hours per day to be learning languages. I only was able to make 30 minutes to 1 hour per day. Now I'm doing a bit more, although schedule's even more crazy now, but somehow fitting it all in. But the point is that I had a limited amount of time and Mandarin Chinese was at a beginner level. It required a lot of attention from me. And so I decided to just focus on that until I could bring it to an intermediate level. And I made a video, in the last few months where I was just elated, so excited that I felt my Mandarin was finally, trickling into that intermediate level. I made another progress update after that. I then documented my first Chinese conversation with my good friend Jake. And then now I'm doing all this extensive reading. So I really focused on bringing Mandarin to an intermediate level. At that point, I brought back in German. Now, I'm also documenting the process of bringing German back up to my previous level, which I would say it was like a high intermediate before, and then finally pushing it into the advanced stages. But again, the key principle there is that both languages are intermediate. Now, in the past, I've told stories about how I learned quite a few languages concurrently over the space of a few years, and I really brought up about 6 languages to some level of fluency, and that took quite a lot of time, and it also took a pretty sophisticated habit system. And I've spoken quite a lot on this channel about different systems I have, like my 3-tier prioritized rotation system, which is really interesting. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I do, but even throughout that time, as I was bringing all these languages up to higher levels and maintaining them, I still never had more than one beginner language at a time. So let's talk a little bit about why I think this is important. First of all, I should say, if you have lots and lots of time every day that you can dedicate to language learning, it's fine if you want to learn more than one language at a beginner level. Certainly, if you can dedicate, 2 hours to one language and then 2 hours to a second language every single day, I have no doubt, that you'll succeed and you'll do fine over the course of time. But still the question is there of, is that the most efficient thing? Even then, I think you'd probably still be better off focusing those 4 hours on one language and bringing it to an intermediate level first. You're going to get there a lot more quickly and then bringing the second one in. But I also think that a lot of people don't have that much time, right? For some people, 30 minutes, 1 hour, that's as much as you have. I do think that if you use dead time, and I've spoken a lot about this, also in my book I wrote a lot about this, dead time can really unlock a ton of additional study time per day. But here's the thing, most dead time activities require at least an intermediate level, depending on what you're doing. So now let's talk more about why it's really helpful to have either one beginner, one intermediate, or two intermediate, or whatever, anything above intermediate, but certainly only one beginner language at a time. It's because once a language is in the intermediate phase, it starts to become a lot more stable. Now, even this intermediate level, it's quite a wide range, first of all. There's a very large difference between what I think of like low intermediate versus high intermediate. That's a big gap. But even anywhere in the intermediate stage, your language is still gonna atrophy quite quickly if you don't study it and if you don't use it. But it's a lot better than the beginner stage. In my experience, when you're a beginner, it takes so much effort just to learn new things. You learn like 10 new words and they just disappear, they're gone, especially if the language is very different than your native language or one that you already know. So I just think that in the beginner level, the language is so much more brittle. It requires so much more time to just get things to stick. And also, there's just less things that you can do. So once your language skills get to an intermediate or advanced level, there are so many more activities you can do, right? And so you could be extensive reading, you could have graded readers, you could listen to podcasts, and maybe you find like an easier version of a podcast. Once you get more advanced, listening to native or authentic podcasts, you could watch TV shows, movies, you could maybe get more of an advanced textbook if that's what you want to do, or a grammar reference if you really want to focus on that. It doesn't matter. The point is there's so many things you can do at the intermediate and advanced levels. It becomes very easy to segment your time based on a diverse set of activities. So for me right now with German, I'm mostly focusing on reviewing all the Babbel German courses. I've already done those in the past, but it's just a lot of fun for me. I really enjoy it. And it's a nice way to just review all the basics of German, and I'm really enjoying it. Now with Mandarin Chinese, I don't need to do that, right? Mandarin Chinese, I've studied all these things a lot more recently. It's all a lot more fresh. Right now in Mandarin, I'm mostly focused on trying to solidify that knowledge, trying to get more comfortable with those basics, trying to expand my vocabulary, but also, trying to internalize and solidify the vocabulary that I already know, and all these things, right? So with Mandarin Chinese, I can focus on the activity of extensive reading for the time being. And then I'm doing my more like textbook or app study with German, but I could also be doing podcasting with German or different things. The point is, it becomes very easy to separate my time between the two languages and they don't atrophy as quickly. So I find I'm able to maintain and also build momentum with these two languages at the intermediate level. Whereas again, when my Mandarin was beginner, it really required quite a lot of time. And I certainly think if Mandarin and German were both beginner languages for me, it would be really tricky because, German has a whole bunch of stuff with its noun cases and its grammatical structures, and the second verb comes at the end, and there's a lot there that would be new for me as an English speaker that would really require a lot of time to wrap my head around. And of course, Mandarin is just completely different in a lot of ways. And so again, that requires a lot of time. So I think I would be a lot less successful if I tried to take on German and Mandarin both as beginner languages. And you know, the cool thing is that yes, as languages become even more advanced and certainly highly advanced, maybe even near native, you know, these kind of really high levels, it's even nicer because there's so many things you can do. Like you can just turn on a movie and watch that for a couple of hours and it's amazing, right? You could just, you know, crack open one of these books and just read a novel for a couple of hours per week. There's so many things you can do to keep your language skills sharp, and they're gonna also atrophy a lot more slowly. So it becomes easier and easier to create a sophisticated system that allows you to maintain a number of languages and continue improving them, and maybe even have one beginner language that you're bringing up. That's easier if the majority of your languages are at that intermediate or even advanced level. So I hope that makes sense. This is just kind of me thinking out loud based on my recent experiences. If I had more time, I would be also actively maintaining my French, my Japanese. I'd be doing all kinds of things. Italian is desperate for attention. You know, I wish I could study Italian, but this is what I can do right now with my current circumstances. Okay, everybody, I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. And with that, I will take one last sip of what's probably now cold coffee, and I wish you a wonderful day. Still good, still good. By the way, I'm really bad at this. If you like this video, please do consider liking, subscribing, and leave me a comment.